Do you know her? No, but she always walks alone. Everyone saw the girl who walked alone. Let us review the primary causes. She looks like she never sleeps. Maybe she worked all night. Pay close attention to this. I heard she cleans hotel bathrooms after classes. Haha, no wonder she's always tired. They laughed at her poverty, but none of them knew why she was really suffering.
I've lost everything.
What will happen to our children?
No one will ever find the original documents. Good. Then this secret dies with us.
Be careful. The people hurting you are hiding something much bigger.
They called her worthless. But before this story ends, the people who mocked her will be begging for her forgiveness.
This is only the beginning. Trust me, every minute after this changes everything. Subscribe now to Afrok-Drama Diaries and stay till the end, because the truth behind Ine's family will shock you.
Three months earlier, on the surface, the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, looked like every other campus in the country. Students hurried to lectures. Friends laughed beneath the trees. Luxury cars rolled through the campus gates while motorcycles dropped off students who had barely made it to their 8 o'clock classes. Everyone seemed to be chasing a dream. But among thousands of students walked one young woman whose dream came with a price nobody could see. Her name was Ine Ofora. She was only 19 years old. Quiet, brilliant, hardworking, and completely invisible. To her classmates, she was simply the girl who wore the same faded blouse almost every week. The girl with old sandals. The girl who never joined parties. The girl who never bought expensive food after lectures. The girl who always looked tired. Most people believed they knew her story. The truth was, they didn't know anything. Every morning, while the rest of the campus was still asleep, Ine was already awake. At 4:30 in the morning, she tied her hair, washed her face with cold water, and quietly left her tiny hostel room. By 5 o'clock, she was already inside Mama Roseline's bakery. The smell of fresh bread filled the air as workers rushed from one oven to another. While others complained about the early hours, Ine simply rolled up her sleeves and started kneading dough. For 3 straight hours, she worked without stopping. Her hands became rough. Small burns covered her fingers. Sometimes the hot trays left tiny scars on her wrists. But she never complained, because every loaf of bread she helped make brought her one step closer to paying another university bill. At exactly 7:30, she hurried to the small restroom behind the bakery. She washed the flour from her face, changed into her school clothes, smiled at herself in the cracked mirror, and whispered the same words she had whispered almost every morning for the past 2 years. Just keep going. Then she picked up her worn backpack and began the 20-minute walk to campus. Nobody who saw her that morning could have guessed she had already finished half a day's work. She looked like every other student, and that was exactly how she wanted it. Because she had learned something life teaches only through pain. People admire success, but many people laugh at struggle. So she kept her struggles to herself. Unfortunately, secrets have a way of finding the wrong people. That morning, before the first lecture even began, someone was already preparing to make her life miserable. Her name was Chiaka Duru. If Ine represented quiet determination, Chiaka represented effortless privilege. She arrived on campus in a brand new black Proto. The security guards greeted her before opening the gate. Students turned to watch as she stepped out of the vehicle wearing designer sunglasses and carrying a handbag that probably cost more than an entire year's tuition. Confidence followed her everywhere. So did attention. Chiaka never had to ask people to notice her. They simply did. But admiration had slowly become arrogance, and arrogance always looks for someone weaker. Unfortunately, that person became Ine. As students settled into the lecture hall, Ine quietly walked to the front row and opened her notebook. She loved sitting close to the lecturer. It helped her forget everything outside the classroom. For a few hours, she could simply be a student. Nothing more, nothing less. She had barely written the date at the top of the page when a familiar voice interrupted the silence. Ein. The classroom became unusually quiet. Chayaka stood beside her desk. 3 friends stood behind her, already smiling as though they knew what was coming. Chayaka looked at Ine's blouse for several seconds before shaking her head. "I have a question," she smiled. "Does that blouse attend lectures by itself on weekends? Or do you actually wash it sometimes?" Laughter echoed across the room. Several students looked away awkwardly. Others laughed openly. Someone whispered, "I heard she only owns 2 outfits." Another voice answered, "2? You're being generous." The laughter grew louder. Ine looked down at her notebook. For a brief moment, the words on the page became blurry. Not because she wanted to cry, but because she was tired. Tired of pretending insults didn't hurt. Tired of acting like whispers couldn't reach her. Tired of carrying burdens nobody else could see. Still, she lifted her head, looked directly at Chayaka, and smiled politely. "Good morning." Nothing else. No anger. No excuses. No argument. Just, "Good morning." For a moment, Chayaka looked almost disappointed. She wanted a fight. She wanted tears. She wanted everyone watching. Instead, she received kindness. And somehow, that made her even angrier. She leaned closer, lowering her voice just enough for the students nearby to hear. "I also heard something else." Another smile. "They say you work nights." Nobody spoke. "They say you're a waitress at Sunrise Hotel." The room became silent. Then someone laughed. Another student joined. Within seconds, half the class was laughing again. "I hope she doesn't serve my food." "My cousin saw her carrying beer." "Imagine taking lecture notes after washing plates." Every sentence landed like another stone on Ine's shoulders. But she refused to react, because reacting would only give them what they wanted. Instead, she quietly packed her books, walked to another empty seat, and continued writing. No explanation, no defense, just silence. What nobody in that classroom understood was that silence is not always weakness. Sometimes, silence is survival. Sometimes, the strongest people are simply too busy fighting battles nobody else knows exist. The lecture eventually began, but Ine barely heard a single word, not because she wasn't paying attention, because one question kept repeating inside her mind. How did they find out? She had worked at Sunrise Hotel for almost a year. She had been careful. She avoided students whenever possible. She covered her face with a cap whenever she finished late. She told nobody. Absolutely nobody. Yet somehow, her biggest secret had found its way into the lecture hall. She didn't know it yet, but that rumor had already started a chain of events that could no longer be stopped. And before the week was over, someone from her father's forgotten past would come looking for her. The lecture ended, but the laughter stayed with Ine long after the classroom emptied. Every whisper she heard in the hallway felt like it was about her. Every smile looked suspicious. Every group that suddenly stopped talking as she walked past made her wonder if they knew another secret she hadn't even realized she'd been hiding. She kept her eyes on the ground and walked toward the campus gate. Normally, she would stop by the library before heading to work, but not today. Today, she just wanted to disappear. As she reached the main road, her phone vibrated. It was her mother. She answered immediately. "Hello, Mama. My daughter, how are your lectures?" "I'm fine. You sound tired." "I'm just a little stressed." There was a brief silence. Then her mother spoke softly. "Your father asked about you this morning." Ine smiled. "Did he? He thought today was your graduation." Her smile slowly faded. Ever since the collapse of the family business, her father's health had never fully recovered. Some days, he remembered everything. Other days, he struggled to remember what year it was. "The doctor says we should keep encouraging him," her mother continued. "He still believes one day you'll wear your graduation gown and make him proud." A lump formed in Ine's throat. "I will, Mama. I promise." After ending the call, she stood silently by the roadside for several seconds. Failure wasn't an option anymore. She wasn't studying only for herself. She was carrying an entire family on shoulders that were already exhausted. She took a deep breath and continued walking toward Sunrise Hotel. By 6 o'clock that evening, the hotel lobby was already busy. Businessmen discussed contracts over dinner, couples celebrated birthdays, tourists checked into their rooms. To every guest, it looked like an ordinary evening. But for the staff, it was another long night. Ine tied her apron, adjusted her name tag, and forced herself to smile. No matter how difficult life became, customers were never supposed to notice. She had just finished serving drinks when her supervisor approached. Ine. Yes, sir? Table 7. New customer. Take good care of her. Ine picked up a menu and walked toward the table. An elegant woman sat alone beside the window. She looked to be in her late 50s. Her traditional outfit was simple, but expensive. Gold earrings reflected the warm restaurant lights. Everything about her suggested quiet wealth. Ine smiled politely. Good evening, Ma. Welcome to Sunrise Hotel. The woman looked up. Their eyes met. Something changed. The woman didn't answer immediately. She simply stared, almost as if she had seen a ghost. Ine shifted uncomfortably. Ma, would you like to see the menu? Still no answer. Only silence. Then, very quietly, the woman asked, What is your name? Ine. What? Ophora. The woman's fingers tightened around the glass in front of her. Ophora? Yes. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then the woman whispered words that made Ine's entire body go cold. You look exactly like your father. Ine froze. Nobody outside her family had said those words in years. You knew my father? The woman looked away. For the first time, her calm expression disappeared. It was replaced by something else. Guilt, regret, fear. She slowly reached into her handbag, removed a crisp 5,000 naira note, placed it on the table. Keep the change. Ma, your bill isn't even. I know. The woman stood up. She adjusted her wrapper, then leaned closer. Her voice became almost a whisper. Listen carefully. Someone is watching you. Ine frowned. I don't understand. You don't have to. Just be careful, especially of people whose fathers suddenly became rich 5 years ago. Before Ine could ask another question, the woman walked away. She disappeared into the night, leaving Ine standing beside table 7, completely confused. 5 years ago, the same year her father's company collapsed, the same year everything changed. Was it just a coincidence? Or was someone trying to tell her something? She looked down. The 5,000 naira note was still lying on the table. Folded beneath it was another piece of paper. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. There were only 6 handwritten words. Ask who really betrayed your father. Ine's heartbeat echoed inside her ears. She read the sentence again and again. Then one final time. Who really betrayed your father? She slipped the paper into her apron before anyone could see it. But she didn't notice something else. Outside the hotel, across the street, a black SUV had been parked for almost 20 minutes. Inside, a man wearing dark glasses watched the hotel entrance without saying a word. The moment the elegant woman walked out, he picked up his phone. Only one sentence left his mouth. She finally found the girl. Then, he ended the call. That night, Ine barely slept. The folded note remained on the small table beside her bed. Ask who really betrayed your father. She had read those 6 words at least 50 times. Every time she looked at them, more questions appeared. Who was the woman? How did she know her father? Why did she seem afraid? And most importantly, what exactly had happened 5 years ago? Growing up, everyone had simply told her that her father's company collapsed because of fraud. That was the story. That was the truth. Or so she believed. But what if it wasn't? The next morning, Ine arrived at the bakery earlier than usual. Her hands worked automatically, kneading dough while her mind replayed the previous night over and over again. Even Mama Rosaline noticed. My daughter, you're here, but your mind isn't. Ine forced a smile. I'm fine, Mama. The old woman shook her head. No, something is troubling you. I've watched you for 2 years. You only become this quiet when your heart is carrying something heavy. For a moment, Ine almost told her everything. The mysterious woman. The note. Her father's name. But something stopped her. The warning. Be careful who you trust. She simply smiled. I'll be okay. Mama Rosaline nodded slowly. I pray so. Campus was unusually noisy that afternoon. Students crowded around the faculty notice board. Results from the mid-semester examinations had finally been released. Everyone pushed forward. Some laughed. Others panicked. Phones appeared everywhere as students searched for their names. Ine stood quietly at the back. She hated crowds. Finally, someone shouted, Ine, it's you! She slowly walked closer. There, beside her matriculation number, was the highest score in the entire department, 94%. For a few seconds, the crowd became silent. Then whispers started. How? When does she even study? I thought she worked every night. I heard she's always tired. Someone else muttered. Maybe she cheated. The words reached Ine's ears. She didn't react. She simply took one photograph of the result and quietly walked away. Across the corridor, Chiaka watched everything. Her smile disappeared. She wasn't used to losing, especially not to someone she considered beneath her. One of her friends laughed awkwardly. It's just one exam. Chiaka didn't answer. Her eyes remained fixed on Ine. Then she said something that made even her friends uncomfortable. If I can't beat her, I'll destroy her. That evening, another rumor appeared. This time, it wasn't whispered. It spread across every student WhatsApp group. Someone had secretly taken a picture of Ine wearing her hotel uniform. The caption read, Economics student by day, hotel girl by night. Within minutes, hundreds of students had seen it. Laughing emojis, cruel comments, memes, mocking captions. Even students who had never spoken to Ine before joined the jokes. By sunset, the entire campus knew. Ine switched off her phone. She couldn't bear to read another comment. As she quietly walked towards Sunrise Hotel, she noticed something strange. The same black SUV from the previous night was parked across the road again. Its windows were heavily tinted. The engine was running, but no one came out. She slowed her pace. The vehicle remained still. A strange feeling settled in her chest. Was it following her? Or was she imagining things? Before she could think any further, her phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello? For several seconds, silence. Then, an elderly male voice spoke. Ine? Yes. My name doesn't matter, but I worked with your father. Ine stopped walking. I've been trying to find you. Her heartbeat quickened. Who are you? I know what happened to Chief Ofora. I know who betrayed him. Everything around Ine suddenly felt distant. Cars, people, noise. She heard nothing except the man's voice. When can we meet? The old man hesitated. Not on the phone. It's dangerous. There are people listening. A cold chill ran through Ine's body. What do you mean? I've already said too much. Tomorrow, 6 o'clock, Old Freedom Park. Come alone. Before Ine could ask another question, the call ended. She stared at her phone, hands trembling. Tomorrow, she might finally learn the truth. She had no idea. Someone else had heard every second of that conversation. Inside the black SUV, a man slowly lowered a pair of binoculars. He picked up another phone. His voice was calm, almost emotionless. She's meeting him tomorrow. A pause. Then he nodded. No, don't touch the girl. Bring me the old man. The call ended. The SUV slowly drove away into the darkness. Meanwhile, Ine stood alone beneath the fading evening sky, holding a secret that was about to change her life forever. She believed tomorrow would finally bring answers. She had no way of knowing that by this time tomorrow, one man would disappear, and another secret would be buried even deeper. The following day, Ine couldn't concentrate on anything. Not during lectures, not at the bakery, not even while serving customers at Sunrise Hotel. Every few minutes, she looked at the time. 6 o'clock. Freedom Park. The old man promised answers. For the first time in years, she felt hope. Real hope. Maybe her father had been innocent all along. Maybe someone had finally decided to tell the truth. 5:45. Ine arrived at the old Freedom Park. The place was almost empty. A few elderly men sat beneath large mango trees playing draughts. Children chased one another across the field. Street vendors shouted, trying to attract customers. Everything looked normal. Too normal. She checked her phone. No message. No missed call. She waited. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Still nothing. Just as she reached for her phone again, it rang. Unknown number. Ein. It was the old man. I'm sorry. I can't come. Her heart sank. Why? A long silence followed. Then, they know. Ine frowned. Who knows? They've been watching me. I made a mistake calling you. Listen carefully. If anything happens to me, go to your father's old office. What? There's a blue file. Before he could finish, she heard shouting. Then, a loud crash. The phone hit the ground. Someone screamed. Another voice shouted, "Catch him!" The call suddenly disconnected. Ein? She looked at the phone. The line was dead. She immediately called back. The number was switched off. Again. Nothing. Again. Still nothing. Her hands began shaking. Something had gone terribly wrong. At that same moment, less than 2 kilometers away, an elderly man was being forced into the back of a black SUV. His phone lay smashed on the roadside. One of the men picked it up, removed the battery, then crushed it beneath his shoe. Inside the vehicle, the old man looked straight at the man sitting opposite him. You can't hide the truth forever. The man smiled, coldly. You'd be surprised. How long money can keep the truth buried? The SUV disappeared into traffic. Meanwhile, Ine stood frozen in Freedom Park. She didn't know whether to cry or run. She kept replaying the last sentence she heard. Go to your father's old office. What blue file? What office? Her father had lost everything years ago. The building had been sold. Hadn't it? Unless something had been left behind. That evening, she traveled home to Enugu without telling anyone. The journey took almost 2 hours. As the bus entered her old neighborhood, memories flooded back. The streets looked smaller now. The large white house where she had grown up no longer belonged to them. Fresh paint covered the walls. New cars occupied the driveway. Children she didn't recognize played in the compound that once echoed with her own laughter. She looked away. Some memories hurt too much. Her mother welcomed her with a warm hug. I wasn't expecting you. I needed to see Dad. Her mother smiled sadly. He's having one of his good days. When Ine entered the bedroom, her father was sitting near the window, watching the sunset. For a moment, he looked exactly like the man she remembered years ago. Strong, calm, peaceful. He smiled. My professor is home. Ine almost cried. He still called her that, ever since she was little. She knelt beside him. Dad, I need to ask you something. He nodded. Do you remember your old office? His smile slowly disappeared. The room became silent. His eyes lost focus, almost as if they were looking into another time. Finally, he whispered one sentence. I should never have trusted Emeka. Ine stopped breathing. Emeka, the first name. No surname. Just Emeka. Before she could ask another question, her father's hands began trembling violently. The medicine bottle fell onto the floor. Her mother rushed into the room. Obina! Everything became chaotic. Within minutes, they were rushing him to the hospital. Late that night, as Ine sat alone outside the emergency ward, her phone vibrated. Unknown number. Again, she answered immediately. Hello? A distorted voice spoke slowly. If you want your father to stay alive, stop looking for the truth. The line went dead. Ine stared at the screen. For the first time, she realized this wasn't just about the past anymore. Someone was willing to threaten her family just to keep one secret hidden. And whoever that person was already knew exactly where she was. Ine secretly returns to her father's abandoned office, where she discovers a hidden blue file. But before she can open it, she realizes she isn't alone. Someone has been waiting for her, And what they reveal changes everything. That night, Ine didn't leave the hospital until after midnight. Her father was finally stable. The doctors assured her there was no immediate danger. But the warning call kept echoing inside her mind. If you want your father to stay alive, stop looking for the truth. Someone wasn't bluffing. Someone was watching every move she made. And that meant one thing. The truth was far more dangerous than she had imagined. The next morning, before anyone else in her family woke up, Ine quietly left the house. She didn't tell her mother where she was going. If something went wrong, she didn't want her family involved. She boarded a bus into the city. Her destination was a place she hadn't seen in 5 years. Ofora Logistics headquarters. The once proud office building now looked abandoned. The company's faded logo still hung above the entrance, half covered in rust. Broken windows reflected the morning sun. Wild grass had grown around the parking lot where dozens of company trucks once stood. Standing there, Ine felt as though she was looking at the ruins of her childhood. She took a deep breath, then walked toward the entrance. The front door was locked. She circled the building until she found a side entrance hanging loosely from broken hinges. The hallway smelled of dust and damp paper. Old office furniture lay scattered across the floor. Family photographs had long been removed. Only silence remained. Her father's office was at the end of the corridor. The nameplate had been torn off years ago. She slowly pushed the door open. The room was almost empty. A broken desk, a cracked bookshelf, a dusty filing cabinet. Nothing else. She searched every drawer. Nothing. Every cupboard. Nothing. For nearly 20 minutes, she found absolutely nothing. She was about to give up when she noticed something unusual. One floor tile beneath the old desk looked newer than the others. She knelt down, tapped it gently. It sounded hollow. Her heartbeat quickened. Using the leg of a broken chair, she carefully lifted the tile. Underneath was a small metal box wrapped in black plastic. Her hands trembled. Someone had hidden it deliberately. She pulled it out and wiped away years of dust. Inside was exactly what the old man had mentioned. A blue file. Alongside it, a USB flash drive. And an old photograph. Ine stared at the picture. It showed 2 young men smiling beside a brand new truck. One was her father. The other was a mechaduru. Their arms rested on each other's shoulders like brothers. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. The man who had allegedly destroyed her father had once been his closest friend. Before she could open the file, she heard footsteps. Someone had entered the building. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Ine quickly switched off her phone's flashlight. The footsteps grew louder, closer. They stopped outside the office. Silence. Then, the doorknob slowly began to turn. Ine's breathing became shallow. She looked around desperately. There was nowhere to hide. The door creaked open. A tall, elderly man stepped inside. Gray beard, simple white shirt, walking stick. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Then the stranger looked at the blue file in her hands. His eyes widened. "So," he said quietly, "you finally found it." Ine tightened her grip on the file. "Who are you?" The old man smiled sadly. "My name is Samuel Okeki. I was your father's accountant." The room fell silent. Samuel slowly looked around the abandoned office. "I prayed this day would come. You knew my father?" "For more than 30 years. Then tell me, who destroyed him?" Samuel closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, they were filled with regret. It wasn't just Emeka. There were others. Powerful men, politicians, bank executives. People who needed one innocent man to carry the blame. Ine felt the ground beneath her shift. "This file," Samuel continued, "contains only part of the truth." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "The real evidence was never kept here." Her heart sank. "Where is it?" Samuel looked toward the broken window before answering. "I hid it, but after what happened to Mr. Onisike, I don't know if it's still safe." Ine stared at him. "You know Mr. Onisike?" Samuel nodded slowly. "He was trying to reach you, but he disappeared before he could." A chill ran through Ine's body. So he didn't resign? Samuel shook his head. No, he never resigned. He vanished. At that exact moment, the sound of tires screeching echoed outside the building. Samuel rushed to the window. His face turned pale. They found us. 3 black SUVs pulled into the abandoned parking lot. Several men stepped out, all wearing black suits. One of them pointed toward the office window. Samuel grabbed Ine by the arm. There's no time. Take the blue file. Whatever happens, don't let them have it. Samuel and Ine race through the abandoned building as armed men close in. During the escape, Samuel reveals the name of the politician who orchestrated the conspiracy. But before he can finish, a gunshot changes everything. The hunt for the truth has officially begun. Samuel didn't wait for another second. He grabbed Ine's wrist and pulled her toward the back of the office. Move! The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the building. Voices shouted from the corridor. Search every room! They're still inside! Ine clutched the blue file tightly against her chest. Her heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear Samuel. This way, he whispered. Behind an old filing cabinet was a narrow wooden door, almost hidden beneath years of dust. Samuel forced it open. A dark staircase appeared. I helped build this office, he said. Your father insisted on having an emergency exit. He said every businessman should always have a second way out. They hurried downstairs. The air smelled of damp concrete. Cobwebs brushed against their faces as they moved through the narrow passage. Above them, they heard furniture crashing. The men had reached the office. They found the room, someone shouted. Samuel didn't stop. Keep moving. After several minutes, they reached a rusted metal door. Samuel pushed with all his strength. The door finally opened into an abandoned warehouse behind the old building. For the first time in several minutes, they could breathe. But Samuel wasn't smiling. They won't stop. They've been protecting this secret for 5 years, and now they know you have the file. They hid inside the warehouse until the noise faded. Only then did Samuel finally sit down. He looked exhausted, older than before, almost defeated. I owe your father the truth, he said quietly. Ine sat beside him. Then tell me everything. Samuel took a deep breath. Your father never stole a single naira. I knew that. Mr. Inoshike knew that. So did your father's lawyer. Then why did nobody speak? Samuel lowered his head. Because people were afraid. Afraid of whom? He hesitated, then slowly answered. Emikaduru was only the face people saw. He wasn't the man giving the orders. Ine frowned. What do you mean? There was another man. A man with political power. A man whose signature appeared on every government contract. He controlled the banks. He controlled the investigators. And anyone who refused to cooperate. Samuel paused, lost everything. Ine stared at him. So my father never stood a chance. Samuel slowly shook his head. No, he was chosen? Chosen? He refused to sign false documents. He refused to approve fake transport invoices, so they made him the criminal instead. Tears filled Ine's eyes. For 5 years, her father had blamed himself, when the real criminals had been living in luxury all along. Samuel reached into his coat pocket. I've carried this for years. He handed Ine a small silver key. What is it? Your father rented a safety deposit box. He never collected what was inside, because he was arrested before he had the chance. Ine looked at the key. The real evidence, Samuel nodded, is inside that box. For the first time, hope returned. If we get those documents, my father's name can finally be cleared. Samuel smiled. Yes, but first, we must reach the bank. Just then, Samuel's phone vibrated. He looked at the screen. His expression changed instantly. No, what happened? Ine asked. Samuel slowly showed her the phone. It was a news alert. Former accountant found dead near Riverbridge. Police suspect robbery. Ine's eyes widened. The photo. It can't be. It was Mr. Anosike, the same man who had promised to help her, the same man who had disappeared. Samuel closed his eyes. It wasn't robbery. It was a warning. A heavy silence filled the warehouse. If they could kill Anosike, they would not hesitate to kill again. As the sun began to set, Samuel and Ine left through the back streets. Neither of them noticed the drone flying high above the city. Its camera followed them silently. Several kilometers away, inside a luxurious mansion, a large screen displayed the live video feed. A middle-aged man in an expensive suit watched without speaking. His face remained hidden in the shadows. One of his assistants entered the room. "Sir, they escaped." The man smiled faintly. "I expected they would. What should we do?" He stood and walked toward the window. "Let the girl find the truth." The assistant looked confused. "Sir?" The man slowly turned around. "Because once she opens that safety deposit box, she'll lead us to the one thing we've been searching for." The assistant frowned. "What thing?" The mysterious man looked directly at the screen showing Ine, then quietly replied, "Chief Obina Ofora didn't hide just documents. He hid something worth billions." The room fell silent. For the first time, it became clear. This had never been only about destroying one man. It was about finding something that had remained hidden for 5 long years. Ein and Samuel raced to the bank to open the safety deposit box. But when they finally unlock it, they don't find money. They find a handwritten confession, a flash drive, and one photograph that reveals the identity of the true mastermind behind the conspiracy. The truth is finally within reach, but so are the people willing to kill for it. The next morning, Ian and Samuel left before sunrise. Neither of them spoke during the journey. The streets of Enugu were slowly coming alive, but for them, the city felt unusually quiet. Every passing vehicle looked suspicious. Every unfamiliar face seemed like someone watching them. Samuel tightened his grip on the small silver key. "This key has waited 5 years," he said quietly. "I only pray what's inside is still there." An hour later, they arrived at an old commercial bank in the city center. The building had changed over the years, but the vault remained the same. Samuel walked confidently to the reception desk. "I need access to a safety deposit box registered in the name of Chief Obina Ofora." The receptionist searched the records. Her expression changed. "The box is still active." Ine looked at Samuel in disbelief. 5 years, and nobody had touched it. After several identity checks, an elderly vault manager appeared. He led them through a long corridor lined with steel doors. Finally, he stopped. He inserted one key. Samuel inserted the other. The heavy lock clicked open. The manager stepped back. "You may have your privacy." The moment the door closed, Ine slowly opened the box. She expected money, jewelry, legal documents. Instead, she found 3 simple items: a brown envelope, a flash drive, and a small leather diary. Nothing more. Samuel picked up the diary first. His hands began trembling before he had even opened it. "I recognize this. It's your father's handwriting." Ine carefully opened the first page. Every word had been written by Chief Obina himself. "If anyone is reading this, it means I have failed. If my children find this, know this before you believe anything the world says about me. I did not steal." Tears rolled down Ine's face. For the first time in years, she was hearing her father's voice through his own words. The diary continued. "I trusted my closest friend, Emeka Duru. He convinced me to sign documents I was never allowed to read completely. When I discovered the truth, it was already too late." Samuel closed his eyes. "I warned him. He wouldn't listen." Ine turned another page, then another. Each page revealed more details about the conspiracy: fake contracts, forged signatures, illegal payments, government officials. Everything her father had suspected, he had written down. Then she reached the final page. The handwriting suddenly became rushed, uneven, almost desperate. "If anything happens to me, do not look for Emeka. He is only protecting someone more powerful." Underneath, one name had been written, then scratched out violently with black ink. The name was impossible to read. Someone, or perhaps even her father himself, had made sure it remained hidden. Samuel carefully picked up the brown envelope. Inside were several old photographs. One photograph immediately caught Ine's attention. It showed her father standing beside Emeka Duru and another man. The third man wore dark sunglasses. His face was partly hidden, but there was something familiar about him. On the back of the photograph, someone had written one sentence: The meeting that destroyed everything. Ine stared at the picture. I've seen this man before. Samuel frowned. Where? I don't know, but I know that face. Before either of them could think further, Samuel inserted the flash drive into a small laptop he had brought. Several folders appeared: company records, bank transactions, scanned contracts, and one video file. Its title simply read, Final Evidence. Samuel clicked it. The screen remained black for several seconds. Then, Chief Obina appeared. He was sitting inside his office, looking directly into the camera. If you are watching this, I may already be dead. Ine covered her mouth. Her father looked tired, older, broken, but determined. I have only one chance to expose the truth. The man responsible for everything. Suddenly, the video froze. Samuel frowned. No. The screen flashed, then went completely black. A message appeared. Fire corrupted. Samuel tried again. Nothing. Again. Nothing. The final evidence had been damaged. Only the first 30 seconds remained. The name of the mastermind was gone. Ine felt her hope slipping away. So that's it? We were this close? Samuel shook his head. No! There has to be another copy. Just then, his phone vibrated. Unknown number. He answered carefully. A calm voice spoke. You've opened the box. Samuel's face turned pale. Who is this? You've just made a very expensive mistake. The call ended. At that exact moment, the bank's emergency alarm began screaming throughout the building. Customers panicked. Security guards started shouting. Someone yelled, "Everybody stay where you are!" Outside, 3 black SUVs had surrounded the bank. Men in black suits stepped out. One of them pointed toward the entrance. They're inside. Ine looked at Samuel. Samuel looked at the diary, then at the flash drive. We have only one chance. He handed everything to Ine. Run. What about you? I'll keep them busy. I won't leave you. Samuel smiled sadly. You remind me of your father. He never left anyone behind either. Then, before Ine could stop him, Samuel pushed her toward the emergency exit and walked straight toward the men waiting outside. Samuel sacrifices himself so Ine can escape with the diary. Mrs. Duru finally confesses everything. Chiaka learns the truth about her father. The real mastermind is exposed. Chief Obina's name is cleared, and the girl they mocked becomes the woman everyone respects. The final confrontation delivers the story's emotional payoff and moral lesson. The emergency alarm echoed through every floor of the bank. Customers screamed. Security guards rushed toward the entrance. For a few seconds, complete chaos took over. Samuel looked at Ine one last time. His voice remained calm. Listen to me carefully. No matter what happens, do not stop. Do not look back. Your father carried this truth for 5 years. Now it's your turn. Before Ine could answer, Samuel slammed the emergency exit door shut behind her. She heard the lock click. Then, she heard shouting. The men had reached the vault corridor. Samuel had stayed behind. Alone, Ine ran. Through narrow service corridors, down concrete stairs, out into the alley behind the bank. Her heart raced as she clutched the diary, the flash drive, and the photographs against her chest. She didn't stop running until she reached the crowded market several streets away. Only then did she dare to look behind her. No one was following. For the moment, she was safe. But Samuel wasn't. That evening, every television station carried the same breaking news. Armed robbery attempt at Enugu Commercial Bank. No mention of Samuel. No mention of the safety deposit box. No mention of the documents. Just another carefully written story. Someone was controlling the narrative. Hours later, Ine's phone rang. The caller ID displayed an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A familiar voice spoke. Ine, it was Mrs. Duru. We need to meet. This ends today. They met at the small chapel behind St. Patrick's Cathedral. The church was almost empty. Mrs. Duru looked exhausted. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She carried a brown envelope in her hands. I've been living with this guilt for years, she whispered. I should have spoken sooner. She handed the envelope to Ine. Inside were copies of old bank transfers, signed agreements, and handwritten letters. Each document connected Emeka Duru to the conspiracy. But one letter stood out. It wasn't signed by Emeka. It was signed by Senator Gabriel Okonkwo. Mrs. Duru lowered her head. My husband never planned any of this. He was greedy, yes, but he wasn't the mastermind. The senator controlled everything. When your father refused to approve fake contracts, they destroyed him. And when my husband tried to leave, they threatened our family too. Tears rolled down her face. I kept silent because I was afraid. But I cannot live with this anymore. The following morning, Ian and her lawyer submitted every document to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. The diary, the contracts, the photographs, the bank records, Mrs. Duru's written statement, everything. Within 48 hours, the investigation reopened. News spread across Nigeria. Television stations interrupted regular programming. Newspapers printed shocking headlines. 5-year fraud case reopened. Businessman's conviction under review. Powerful senator named in financial scandal. The country watched. 3 days later, officers arrived at Emeka Duru's mansion. This time, there were cameras, journalists, neighbors. No amount of influence could stop the investigation anymore. Chiaka stood frozen at the top of the staircase as officers searched every room. She couldn't understand what was happening. Her father avoided her eyes. For the first time in her life, the powerful man she admired looked frightened. Hours later, he was taken away in handcuffs. The same cameras that once celebrated his success now broadcast his downfall. Back at the university, students gathered around their phones. Nobody talked about fashion anymore. Nobody laughed at old clothes. Nobody mocked the waitress. Instead, they whispered one sentence. She was telling the truth all along. The girl they had ridiculed had become the center of the biggest news story in the country. Chiaka searched for Ine for 2 days. Finally, she found her sitting beneath the same tree where students usually studied between lectures. Slowly, she walked over. There was no designer confidence anymore, no arrogance, no audience. Just a broken young woman carrying the weight of her father's choices. She stopped a few feet away. I'm sorry. Ine remained silent. I didn't know. I swear. I didn't know what my father had done. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ine closed her notebook, looked calmly into Chiaka's eyes, and said quietly, I believe you. Chiaka looked surprised. But whether you knew or not, you still chose to humiliate someone you believed was beneath you. You laughed at poverty. You mocked hard work. You judged a story you never understood. Tears rolled down Chiaka's face. I know. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Ine nodded gently. Then let that regret make you a better person. She stood, picked up her books, and walked away. Not because she hated Chiaka, but because some victories don't need another argument. Months later, the court officially cleared Chief Obinna Ofora of every allegation. His name was restored. His seized assets were returned to the family. Although years of suffering could never be erased, his dignity finally came home. The day the judgment was announced, Chief Obinna held his daughter tightly. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Finally, he smiled. My professor, you kept your promise. Ine couldn't hold back her tears. Everything she had endured, every early morning, every insult, every night washing dishes, had led to this moment. 1 year later, Ine graduated at the top of her class. As she walked across the stage to receive her degree, the auditorium erupted into applause. Among the crowd sat her parents, her father, healthy enough to stand, her mother, crying tears of joy. And quietly, in the last row, sat Mrs. Duru. She applauded longer than anyone else, not because she expected forgiveness, but because she knew justice had finally found its way home. Some people laughed at a waitress. Some people mocked an old blouse. Some people judged a young woman without knowing the battles she fought before sunrise. But character is never measured by what someone owns. It is measured by what they refuse to become, even after life gives them every reason to give up. The girl they mocked never became bitter. She became stronger. And in the end, the truth did what it always does. It waited patiently until the right moment to be heard.